Well, let's start it properly.
Okay.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Dascx show. Today I wanted to do something a bit different to what I've been doing and do it in person. So I have here today Dr. Genevieve Hays, who's actually one of the most prominent thought leaders in the whole machine learning and data analytics. Did I say that right?
I'll go with that.
Yeah, cool. I'll actually, you know what? I'll let you introduce yourself properly.
Okay. Hello, viewers. I'm Dr. Genevieve Hays, and I work with data scientists to help them keep up with the latest developments in data science.
Thank you, and welcome to the Dascx show, Dr. Hays. And I'll call you Genevieve.
Yes.
I promise. And I won't call you Jen.
Yes. And I won't call you Das.
Yes, good. As far as you don't call me That's it. I'm okay with all other forms. First of all, why don't you just start by letting me know, mostly like one of the things I'm actually not 100% crystal clear is what is ML. I know AI, ML, and data analytics because there are so many definitions when it's come to this, and you have these small, different firms, companies with their different tools saying like we are forefront at the data analytics and machine learning. But in general terms, what is machine learning and what does it mean when you say machine learning, and what is data analytics and why it's so important?
Okay, so machine learning is basically writing computer programs so that computers can find patterns in data. And if you shove the data into that computer program, the computer program should be able to find that pattern by itself.
Yeah.
So the machine is effectively learning. And there are different flavors of machine learning, but I won't go into those unless you want me to.
Yeah, go for it. We have time. Don't worry.
We got time. So there are three main types of machine learning. There's supervised learning, there's unsupervised learning, and there's reinforcement learning. Mm-hmm. So unsupervised learning, that's basically just you throw your data into the computer program and you ask it to find groupings or clusters in that data. So one common application for that is in customer analytics or marketing. Okay. So you might have data relating to the customers for a big retailer, for example, and they might look for clusters among those based on demographic categories or based on what people are buying. So, for example, if you've got two young people who are, say, in their 30s and buying a lot of baby food, nappies, etc., you could probably class those in the young parent category.
Yeah. Segmentations and things.
Yeah, segmentation. Whereas you might have someone who's a lot older and buying a lot of meals for one, microwave meals, and that'd be segmentation, and that could be done using unsupervised learning.
Okay.
Supervised learning is probably what most people think of as machine learning, and this is where you have a labeled data set. So you have your data set which has your particular characteristics of something. So it might be data about a customer, might be data about a house if you're using a real estate application. Could be just about anything, and it's got a label at the end of it. So that label might be something like the estimated price of a house, or it could be whether something is relevant or not relevant. And you're basically training your model to work out, to be able to predict that label at the end of it.
Okay.
And then there's reinforcement learning, which is the least common form of machine learning, and that's basically learning through rewards. So one common application of this, which is sort of a toy application, is training a model to play video games.
Okay.
So if you can find this on the internet, people have trained models to play Super Mario Brothers. And so it's basically training a computer to how to play Super Mario Brothers without telling them anything. And all the computer knows is the score for the game and whether Mario's alive or dead, obviously.
Is that like the most natural form of machine learning, or it's just a very basic level? Because when you say playing a game, obviously I heard about game development firms using these AI to look for all the possibilities and then train the level of hardness and things like that. Is that something?
That's I'm not quite sure how you do that, because I don't work for a game development firm. But this is, I mean, a lot of Chat GPT, which has recently come out, that makes use of reinforcement learning. So it's basically a reward structure where if the computer program is doing something good, like keeping Mario alive, it will get a reward, which will be the points. And if it's doing something bad, it will get a penalty, like Mario dies. And and apparently they did something like that when they were training Chat GPT. They provided some sort of reward if it got a good answer and some sort of penalty if it got a bad answer. And eventually the machine will learn to optimise their score and eventually play a perfect game of Super Mario Brothers.
All right. Is that like, if you look at a normal AI that you see, like all these robots from Boston Tech and this new one from SpaceX, Tesla and all, is that pretty much falls into that category?
Yes, I've heard that there are robots that are trained using reinforcement learning. Yeah, one of the lecturers that I had for one of my courses when I was doing my masters had actually used reinforcement learning in that application, and there's some videos of him doing that on the internet. It was pretty awesome.
Is that something you're working on?
I don't work in robotics.
Yeah, okay, cool. So what are you working on these days?
Well, actually, so I've got a couple of things on the go, but probably what's would be most of interest to your viewers.
This is actually the whole thing for me. I want to learn about this. So, look, they can learn, but this is all for me.
Yeah, that's how I do my podcast. I ask questions I want to know, and I figure if I want to know, there's got to be someone out there who wants to know the answer too.
100%.
So, what am I doing right now? So I've actually been doing a research project in the last couple of months to try and understand what is the current state of data and analytics and AI.
Okay.
So I've been speaking to a lot of people, and people, data managers, data scientists, etc., and just asking them, tell me about how you're using data in your organisation. And I've tried to come up with a really wide cross-section of organisations. So some of them are organisations where you wouldn't traditionally think of them as using data. So, for example, I spoke to a couple of people who are working in schools. I spoke to a couple of people at well-known cultural institutions in Victoria. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I've spoken to some people at some very large tech companies that have a big reputation for using data and machine learning. And one of the things that really interested me about it is just how widespread data is, and data and AI are now becoming within businesses. There's quite a diverse spread when it comes to data maturity, but it's just become, everyone now understands we need to use data. And the one thing that I kept getting told again and again by organisations is we're currently working to build a cloud-based data warehouse and get Power BI. So everyone gets that is the bare minimum they need in order to move into the 21st century and be competitive. And then after that, depending on the level of maturity, you've got people who are starting to move into predictive modelling and using machine learning. And at the far end of the spectrum, which is the data-rich, very large organisations, you've got some really incredible stuff going on.
So, like one of the things for us, what I've actually seen is the adoption of data. Like you can have the most basic way of, having your data plugged into Power BI and get reports. That's your basic implementation, right? But then you have the next level using ML and AI to look at insights and just check for patterns of years of data.
Yes.
Both internal and external data sources.
Yes.
And coming up with models.
Yes.
Right? But this is, correct me if I'm wrong, I see this mostly still in the large scale organizations and with big budgets and hasn't reached down to the middle tier and the smaller tier.
Yes.
Do you see that to be the trend in the next 5-10 years as well? Or do you see that to go down to the most like the lowest levels of like small businesses also gonna end up adapting it?
Okay, I think at the moment a lot of organisations are struggling to bring in machine learning because they just can't get access to the staff. So
they're expensive.
Yeah, but it's not just expense. I mean, there are some very large organisations that I've spoken to that could afford to spend money on an army of machine learning specialists. They just can't get that staff because everyone is competing for the same pool of staff. So
what do you mean?
Well, there's only a finite number of people who have the right skill set.
Okay. Resourcing.
Yeah, resourcing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, everyone says, we really want to hire more people. We can afford to hire more people, but we just can't find the people to hire. Or when we get them, because there's everyone competing for them, they'll stay for 12 months and then they'll go and get some more money.
Yeah. But isn't the big firms here, like I have what I've actually worked out as well. Like for an example, when I was at Treasury Wines, we were looking at the Salesforce AI, bringing that in for our Salesforce environment. Yes. But the problem was the amount of money they were asking, we couldn't justify it based on the returns.
Yes.
So in the in the balance sheet, there's no way somebody could go and ask for that money in there. Have you come across that as well with other firms?
I think it's going to become that a lot of AI and ML is built into software that organisations can purchase. Because if you think about it, AI is now starting to become ubiquitous. In tools that you use in your everyday life, they've probably already got AI and analytics built into them. So do you use Grammarly?
No.
Okay. You should use Grammarly.
Okay.
So I assume you just...
You mean my grammar's not good?
I could tell you. I thought my grammar was good. But it could be better.
My grammar suck.
Your grammar will be better if you use Grammarly. And no, I am not being paid by Grammarly. But I bet you use the Microsoft Word spell check.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that basically, I don't know how it works, but my guess is it's probably just some sort of dictionary check thing. I mean, it tells you if you spelt something wrong or you spelled it correctly, but it's set to US spelling, so it tells you should kill the U's out of it, and put in more Z's. But with Grammarly, that's actually trained you to using artificial intelligence, and it doesn't just tell you spelt the words wrong. It actually suggests perhaps you could rewrite it this way, and your writing will sound better. Yeah. And I use the free version. I mean, that is giving me free access to a pretty sophisticated AI model.
Yeah.
And, things like Siri and Cortana and Alexa and all those smart speaker things that everyone has in their home, which I refuse to have in my home because I don't want a speaker listening to me at all times.
I like the Siri on my phone. Very helpful when you're driving.
That's fine when you're driving. I'm just not going to have Alexa or something sitting in my house listening to me. But that's based on artificial intelligence. Yeah. And so that's becoming ubiquitous. And so I see that being built into software that smaller organisations can purchase. And also, I mean, with Power BI, the sorts of stuff that Power BI is doing.
Power BI.
Yeah, and normal people can afford Power BI.
Yeah.
And if you can't afford Power BI, there's Google Data Studio, which is free to anyone who has a Google account.
Yeah.
And that's pretty good. But 10 years ago, I managed a team that was basically hand coding the sorts of stuff that you could do in Power BI using drag and drop stuff. They were hand coding that and spending hours developing reports. Now, and I had 2 people in my team who were doing that. So that would have been, I don't know what their salaries were, but let's say for argument's sake, $100,000 per year.
Yeah.
That's $200,000 per year to get, plus the software costs,
Yeah.
to get reports that you could produce now with minimal training using a free Power BI license or a free Google Data Studio license.
Yeah.
It might be now that to do this advanced machine learning, you need to have data science experts who are paid a couple of $100,000 per year.
Yeah.
But in 10 years' time, we'll probably have some sort of ML tool that will make it accessible to people who can't afford machine learning experts.
Yeah, actually, that's a good way of looking at it. Even like when you look at all these, I was recently looking at Alexa. They have this small unit for the cars because one of the things I'm really interested. One of my passion, favorite subjects is like field sales.
Oh yeah.
Because I did a lot of work in that space. So I have one of these units at home, and I've been trying to teach it to do basic functions on Microsoft and Salesforce CRM.
Oh yeah.
Right? And it's so awesome because if you look at a salesperson capturing conversations and doing the basic admin stuff takes so much time out of their day.
Yeah.
And while if they can do it, train Alexa or something to just do most of those admin work while they're actually driving, that's really good. Back in the day, we used to actually code that, just like you said, into their system and things like that, so they can actually save minute or 2 here and there. Now we just plug and play. Yeah. That's it. It comes built in.
And with a lot of these AI things, cloud platforms like AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform, they offer APIs, so you can include their pre-built artificial intelligence models into your code.
Yeah.
And even, if you've got software developers who work for you, you can get them to incorporate that into computer code that they're writing and incorporate AI models into whatever your software is that you're developing. But even if you don't have a team of software developers, there's someone else out there who does have that team. And they're producing a software as a service tool, which basically provides a front end that their software developers have created over the top of these APIs. And I know I've spoken to people who have these incorporated into their tools, and the first thing I ask is, so which one are you using, AWS, Azure or GCP? And if you ask them directly, they'll say, we're using Microsoft Azure here. And even if they don't, I can now look at the output and go, I know which one you're using.
Where it's coming from,
Yeah.
No, that's actually, it's pretty interesting. So that's a very good point. I want to talk about this Chat GPT.
I love it.
Before that, give me 1 second.
Yep.
Yeah, we're still recording.
It would suck if this ended up being lost.
So I want to talk about this Chat GPT thing.
Yes.
I know there's a lot of hype. I tried to use it. I tried twice. First time all I got was timeouts.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
But the next time I was very impressed how it actually did. I was asking about, I was trying to see whether I can use it to write some blogs.
Yes.
Right? Because that was one of the use cases.
Yes.
I was pretty impressed. Did better work than some of the writers I've come across in the past. So tell me about it.
Okay, I like Chat GPT. I think it's great fun.
Yeah.
So for any of the viewers who haven't come across ChatGPT, ChatGPT is a new chatbot that's recently been released by OpenAI, which at one point was a not-for-profit AI research organisation.
OpenAI, Elon Musk started that, is that right?
Yeah. He started it, but I don't think he's involved anymore. Okay. And I think Microsoft made like $1 billion investment in them.
Really?
And then they quietly said, and we're not for profit anymore. But
okay.
Yeah. And you can actually, if you use Microsoft Azure, you can actually access the OpenAI APIs through that, which is pretty cool. But ChatGPT, that's a chatbot, and it's just been released at the start of December 2022 for basically user feedback. So everyone in the world, it literally hit 1 million users in 5 days.
I know.
Has been hitting it. Yeah.
I saw this graph they were showing how many days it took to hit 1 million users.
Yeah.
They were showing like Twitter took this long, Facebook took this long, and this one is like beat them by such a massive margin.
Yeah, and everyone wants to have a go because it's a conversational chatbot, and you can ask it anything, and it'll give you an answer. And what's really remarkable about it is this isn't the first chatbot that a big tech company has released, but usually when a big tech company releases a chatbot, usually within about 2 or 3 days, there's an announcement, and the internet turned it into a racist troll, so we're just going to take it offline now.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with Tay, which was released by Microsoft in 2016.
Okay.
And with BlenderBot 3, which was released by Meta earlier this year. But so far...
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. It's... I used to get really annoyed by this because I used to think, it's awful that all these people on the internet are trying to turn these chatbots into racist trolls.
Yeah.
But I actually now think it's a good thing because it's basically really hardcore testing for it. You've got the world trying to break this chatbot, and if it can withstand a world of people who are trying to see, let's see if we can turn it into a troll, then if it can withstand that, then it means it's pretty robust.
Pretty robust, yeah. Because chatbots, like at least commercial implementations, they suck.
Yeah.
Most of the chatbots.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, with my phone company, they've got a chatbot on their website.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't want a reputation for, person got onto their chatbot and turned it into a racist.
Yeah, I know. That'll be a fun conversation. Imagine managing that.
I'm just imagining someone going on the internet deliberately trying to turn the Optus or Telstra chatbot into a racist and then putting it all on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it'll be worse than the whole Medicare thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Medibank thing. Yeah.
So we want to. So companies who are using this, they want to prevent scandals like that.
Yeah.
So it's better that someone discovers in 3 days that the chatbot goes crazy than they start to put it out. A commercial version of it, and then you end up with this happening, when someone contacts their phone company.
Yeah, that's because my experience with a lot of chatbots are like, it's really primitive and really sloppy.
Yeah.
Most of these chatbots, but talking to Chat GPT, the second time felt like so natural. You're having a proper conversation with somebody.
Yes.
It's actually any of those things you saw in your previous chatbot wasn't there. Such a smooth conversation.
Yeah, and you can ask it anything. And I was asking it some pretty crazy things like, write me a poem describing ChatGPT in the style of Dr. Seuss. And it did it.
And it's funny how quickly it does it, right?
Yes. one thing that concerns me about it, I mean, a lot of people are concerned about the factual accuracy.
Yeah.
And, there are claims that people manage to get it to tell them things that were factually inaccurate. And I didn't find anything that was inaccurate. I tried to trick it a couple of times. I tried to convince it that Jane Austen wrote Little Women, and it argued back, and it's like, no, Jane Austen did not write Little Women. It was Louisa May Alcott. And it's like, okay, you got it right.
How do they do that?
I think it's trained on the internet. So I presume that they get all this information from all this.
Approved, or they have moderators or people who actually gatekeeping what kind of content it consumes to learn.
Yeah. And presumably, I mean, if it was trained on information that was incorrect, it would just be telling you incorrect facts.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that concerns me, because, I mean, I could imagine something like this replacing a search engine in the future.
Yeah, I saw that.
But here's the thing. If I search on Google, what's the population of Melbourne? Okay, you'll get the Google knowledge graph.
Yeah.
But it'll also send me to a lot of websites. And I can see what those websites are and make a judgment call as to how reliable I think that website is.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I saw the Australian Bureau of Statistics website, I would trust any statistics that came out of that, as opposed to
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia. It's probably okay with the population, but even I'm thinking about some of those old websites you had back, in Web 1 days.
Oh yeah.
Joe's population facts, or 101 animal facts, and
those articles, old ones.
Yeah, the really old stuff. And I can make that judgment call based on what's the source of the information. But if I'm using Chat GPT, it's giving me information and I don't know where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I know it's not Joe's World of Facts that sent it, as opposed to the Australian Bureau of Statistics?
Okay.
And the other thing that I think is going to be a concern, and I know a lot of people in the education sphere are worried about this, is plagiarism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so good, right?
Oh, yeah. So you're going to have some kid who gets ChatGPT to write their essay on, I don't know, Hamlet or something.
Well,
but at the same time,
I would have saved a lot of time if I knew this.
Yeah.
In school days.
But also, where's it getting that essay from? I mean, it didn't just make that essay up. It
picked it up from some source.
Yeah. I mean, I put the first line of Heroes by David Bowie into ChatGPT and said, okay, finish the song for me. And it came out with, several stanzas song. And the first lines of it were exactly Heroes by David Bowie, and then it made other stuff up. But the first thing is, I know those first 5 lines were written by David Bowie.
Yeah.
It didn't attribute those to David Bowie. And I have no idea who wrote the remaining ones. Now, suppose I pass that off as my own work. I've just breached David Bowie's copyright, and I've breached someone else's copyright
as well.
Yeah. So you'll have people who are, if you wrote a blog post from ChatGPT, whose copyright are you breaching in writing
Somebody
that?
Somebody else's one's picking it up.
Yeah. And I mean, with AI-generated art, we've already got a situation where Getty Images and I believe Shutterstock are not permitting anyone to upload AI-generated art onto their website because they don't know what the copyright implications of that are.
Right. So AI-generated art, it's actually not like AI is creating it based on whatever the things it learned. It's actually more like capturing stuff from other sources and putting it together and fixing something up.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen AI-generated art bots you can generate a painting of yourself.
Sorry to stop you there, because I was looking at the same, the OpenAI, they have another art generating bot as well. DALL-E, yeah. So, I was looking at it. They have this thing on the first page about spaceman on a horse.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, it's not like nothing it created, it just pick stuff up from other sources and putting it together more like a collage.
Yeah, and the other one I've seen is lens.ai, which if you put in a photo of yourself, it'll create some sort of artwork that looks like you.
Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't played with this yet, but it's people have been saying it makes everyone look better than they actually do.
Oh yeah, well I like to try it then.
Yeah.
So Chat GPT, obviously I think one day it's still in the beta, right? That's why they have it for free.
Yeah.
Where do you see the Chat GPT will go from here? What's yours?
Well, I'd say, we'll use that phone company example. You'll have a company like a phone company which will get ChatGPT or the models underlying it and train it on their knowledge base and use that to provide better customer service. One of the things that organisations want to be able to do is to be able to get their staff to focus on the tasks that are going to be adding the most value.
Yeah.
So if they can get a model like ChatGPT to deal with their basic customer queries, and a lot of those are going to be things like, when's my phone bill due? The phone's dropped out in my area. Is that me or is that a global problem?
Yeah.
If you can get ChatGPT to answer those queries, then you can get the human assistants to deal with the problems that really require their expertise. So I can see better customer service coming out of this.
Yeah.
And you'll have companies who want to produce training materials, blogs and that, putting in their knowledge base and using that to produce that so that then they can focus on stuff that really matters.
Yeah.
So I can imagine people who want to produce a free ebook based on their material in order to promote their company might use a ChatGPT to write it.
Actually, that's a very good point. Yeah. So in that case, the whole plagiarism thing won't be a problem because it's actually learning from your own content.
Yeah.
And
So,
you own the IP.
yeah, so as long as you're training it on stuff that you own, then you're fine. So if you've written some big 1,000-page book and you say, I want to produce a free ebook so that I can promote my 1,000-page book, and you load that 1,000-page book into ChatGPT, you should be okay.
Yeah.
But I'd still be cautious about
Yeah.
copyright implications.
That's right, because obviously, just like you said, the David Bowie song, it can pick things from different places. It doesn't mean you just do it and go and whatever it outputs, you can sell it. You have to make sure it's actually accurate and things like that. That whole
with Microsoft, they own GitHub. Are you familiar with GitHub? Yeah. So
I used to be a developer.
Okay. Are your viewers familiar with GitHub?
I'm sure they are, but this is for me.
Okay.
This is for me.
So with GitHub, have you come across? How Microsoft? I don't know if they purchased GitHub or they just invested in it.
They're very tight. I don't know about that too, but they're very tightly integrated with their new IDEs. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, have you heard of GitHub CoPilot?
No.
So GitHub CoPilot, you can pay Microsoft, I think it's like $10 US a month. It's quite cheap.
Yeah.
And I've been told that for students it's free, which is going to be fun for anyone who's teaching.
Yeah.
And it'll basically, you know how with something like PyCharm, how that'll do code completion for you.
Yeah.
And that's, I think it's just based on the documentation for whatever your package that you're using, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what GitHub CoPilot does is it's been trained on the data that's in GitHub in order to complete your code. So if you start writing, your Python function string, so define function name, whatever, and that it can complete your function for you, and that has a lot of copyright implications. And there's actually a man in America who's currently exploring a breach of copyright lawsuit against Microsoft for breaching the open source licenses that people granted them by putting their code up on GitHub.
GitHub, yeah, because it used to be fully open source.
Yeah.
You upload your source code, that's it. And you do have the option to obviously keep it private, but most of the people upload it, it's actually open source.
Yeah. And there have been people who have managed to type in stuff that was very specific to code they'd written and get their code exactly coming back.
Really?
Yeah, and without acknowledgement that it was their code.
Wow!
Yeah.
Wow! That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about some specific industries.
Mm-hmm.
So in your experience, when you look at, obviously I'm very close to sales and marketing.
Yeah.
In your experience, what are some of the clever ways that sales teams, sales organizations have used the latest cutting edge ML and AI tech to improve their sales cycles? I know it's very, very popular, but where I'm going with this, I want to know like specific use cases that you have come across and you've worked on.
Okay, most of my use cases have actually been in the financial services industry.
Okay.
So I did do a little bit in marketing and consumer analytics early in my career, but that wasn't really something that I didn't want to optimise prices and work out a way to get people to pay more in the Coles in one suburb versus the Coles in another.
Okay, let's talk about financial industry then.
Okay, so I spent, I don't know, I originally started as an actuary.
What's that?
Okay, so actuaries basically quantify risk.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of actuaries, the traditional fields for actuaries are insurance, banking and finance, superannuation. So I started off in general insurance, which is basically everything that's not life insurance. So your house insurance, your property insurance, and all the different commercial lines of insurance. And back when I started, there were pretty much two places where people with a statistical skill set could get work. It was the financial services industry, or it was marketing and consumer analytics. This was before data science became a big thing.
Okay.
And insurance just, it appealed to me more. And a lot of stuff there was about pricing. So working out ways to price insurance. And back when I did it, I actually spent a while working at WorkSafe, and I was the pricing manager there. Okay. And at that time, we had quite a elaborate model for predicting the future cost of a work cover claim.
All right.
And this was, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago. Even back then, we had this model that could work out, for every single claim that WorkSafe had on its books, how much did WorkSafe expect to pay out to that claimant for the remainder of the life of that claim, which might be only a month off if it's just a basic broken arm, or it could be a whole of life claim if it's some sort of catastrophic injury that the person's had.
What kind of data sources you guys were looking at?
We were predominantly using the data that we had actually collected ourselves.
Okay.
So we had years and years of claims for every single person in Victoria.
Yeah.
But one of the models that I worked on when I was there was we noticed that with hearing aid claims, so hearing loss claims that just, they weren't anything complicated. It was just the person had lost their hearing, usually from working with heavy machinery or something, and they needed a hearing aid. And the way the WorkSafe model worked was that it assumed if you have no payments for a period of time and then there's suddenly a payment, that's a relapse. And if someone relapses after a year or so, that's probably going to result in lots more payments.
Yeah.
But with a hearing aid claim, what you had was someone gets a hearing aid, that lasts for 5 to 10 years, then they get a new hearing aid because their old hearing aids died.
Yeah.
And there's one payment when they get the new hearing aid, and then it goes on for another, decade. And that was not how the model was built. So what I actually did, I looked at some of our data, but I also used other data about, life expectancies. Looking at the people who had hearing loss, because they tended to be people who'd worked with heavy machinery, they were predominantly male, because a lot of those industries are male dominated.
Yeah.
So I was looking at, firstly, is it a male or is it a female? What's their life expectancy? And then how often on average do people need a new hearing aid? And then just, you can just do the maths from there. Yeah,
it's the patterns, right? Working out the pattern, and then back in the day, you have to cater to each case, use case. Now with the whole ML thing, that's the main benefit I see, because you have so much data, and it has so much processing power, and you can create those things in a few seconds. Work out all those models and go, if this is the thing, if they're under this segment, this is how much we look at.
Yeah, and it's just, since then, it's just become more and more sophisticated. So we have better compute power, better data, and people are now coming up with, very fine-tuned models to predict, the costs of insurance claims.
Yeah.
I've heard of some organisations that are using ABS type data, and they can get right down.
What's ABS?
Australian Bureau of Statistics. Okay. Can get right down to predicting how someone's going to vote in the next election in this particular block and things like that. And that's the sort of thing they're doing. Another thing that I've worked with is network data, so communications networks. So, for example, like a social media type network. So something like Twitter or LinkedIn. So that's looking at how you would model that data is, every user on Twitter would be a node, a node in that data. And, if I'm connected to you on Twitter, there would be an edge joining your data point to my data point. Yeah. And then I might be connected to someone else over there. So there'll be something connecting me to them. And we can look at things like, working out who are the influencers and how long would it take for a message to get from you to
that corner,
to that friend, and things like that. And I was doing a lot of work in developing a knowledge graph that made use of data from a particular communications network, so that analysis could be done of that.
Oh, that's very interesting, because the whole the influencer thing is something they use quite a lot. Crunch use quite a lot of data to work out, because I was talking to one of my friends who actually works for LinkedIn, and he said they use quite a lot of data crunching to work out how your first level, second level, third level, and then the people that you may know, and make those suggestions.
Yeah.
Maybe you've seen they actually said, maybe you know this person.
And they're never people I know.
Yeah. So, and it's all the time, you look at it and go, they use my phone data to link to that person. And then, I actually do know them. Yeah. So it's very smart.
What drives me nuts is when it recommends people who went to the same university as you at a completely different time.
That's a lazy prediction.
Yeah, and it's like, no, I do not know this person who went to the same university as me 10 years after I graduated.
Yeah.
Or you might know this person who worked in the same organisation as you, and it's a massive organisation that's spread across multiple locations with, thousands of people at it.
I know, they actually do that. It's actually, that's a lazy way of looking at it.
Yeah.
If you're a 5-person company, maybe.
Yeah.
But if you have 40,000 people in it, no, you don't know.
And they were there at a different time from me as well.
So what's you're most excited about? Like tell me what's one thing that really excites you in your space these days? Apart from Chat GPT.
Yeah, Chat GPT is the thing that gets me most excited. But I mean, what excites me is seeing how everyone else is becoming excited about it. Because when I started working in this area, after I finished my PhD, I wanted to work in a statistical job, and I didn't want to do insurance reserving, which is boring, and I was searching on any job that required statistical knowledge, and there were hardly any out there.
It's funny, I actually recently told one of my friends, because of COVID, the IT geek went from shit house to penthouse.
Yeah.
Like growing up, like you're like, oh yeah, it's an IT geek, another one.
Yeah.
Now like, oh you're in IT, this and that, oh yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when I was in high school and I told everyone I wanted to do actuarial studies. Everyone's like, well, we're not going to do it because some nerd like you's doing it, and that's just completely put me off it. Whereas now, everyone wants to do it.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine teaches one of the actuarial professional qualification courses in data science, and so with the actuarial professional qualification, there are qualification courses in things like general insurance, life insurance, superannuation, data science, etc. And the people who do them in subjects like general insurance and life insurance, they're doing it because they work in general insurance and life insurance, and no one's like, wow, I really want to learn about insurance.
But look, it's like if that what makes you happy, and that's like you wake up excited, that's it. Like I don't see a lot of people doing what we do, like get excited about it. Like I'm still excited.
Yeah, but with the speaking to the lady who teaches the data analytics one or data science one, she says, the students come into that and they're excited about what they're learning.
Yeah,
and they've got people who don't need to do this course because they've already qualified, who are voluntarily taking it. People want to learn about this. And I mean, if you look at how analytics has now permeated everywhere in society. I mean, any app you have on your phone, they send you analytics. I mean, they've got those Fitbits where they track their own personal data.
Pretty much these days.
Yeah, I mean, Grammarly sends me an email once a week saying, congratulations, you have written 1 million words in the last year.
I want to start using Grammarly actually now. You've been talking about it so much.
Yeah, and Spotify, they'll tell you, statistics about what you've been listening to. Yeah, there are analytics everywhere, and people want to know their analytics about their personal lives, and they want to learn how to play with them, and they want to learn, hey, how can I build Chat GPT for myself?
Yeah, exactly. Train it to, be my own Chat GPT.
Yeah, and that's what excites me, the fact that this is no longer seen as a bunch of nerds who are sitting in a back room who are we'll just pat them on the head periodically.
Yeah. And have you seen that TV series IT Crowd? They have them in the basement.
I haven't seen that one. I'm a fan of Silicon Valley though.
Yeah. So look, Dr. Genevieve, thank you very much for taking the time today. I loved it. I loved the chat. And if anybody like to get in touch with you, I know you have your own consulting firm.
Yes.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch?
So you can go to my website, genevievehays.com. And in addition to that, I also have a podcast that I run, Value Driven Data Science, which you can get to from my website or on the main podcasting platforms, so Apple Podcasting or Spotify or Amazon or Google.
Okay.
And also I write articles which I publish on LinkedIn and through my mailing list. So best way to get hold of those is just go to my website and sign up for my mailing list, and you'll get exciting words of wisdom from me.
Awesome. Look, what I'll do is I'll make sure that I have all the contact details in the description. Well, thank you guys. Hope you all enjoy it. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, I really loved it. And we finished on time.